Hello and welcome to the Today's Homeowner Weekly podcast. We're here to help you with the challenges we all face as homeowners. I'm Danny Lifford.
And I'm Joe Truini. And each week, Danny and I are here on the podcast to answer any and all home improvement questions.
And we want to hear from you. Send us your questions or comments at todayshomeowner.com/podcast.
Okay, Danny, let's get started.
Today's Homeowner podcast is brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done. This week, we give you some great tips on how to do a deep cleaning on your glass shower door to make it really look brand new. Another thing is a unique repair of an aluminum storm door. They can be repaired. Don't replace it yet. Repair it instead. Also, when to repair new wood deck boards. Sometimes you have to give it a little time so that it dries out well. We'll tell you exactly how to approach it. We also are dealing with a strange electrical problem and giving a homeowner ways to diagnose what the problem is. Also, a brick landing is settling. What can we do here? Can we raise it back up, or will we have to remove it completely? And Joe, I know you've got a simple solution for us.
I do indeed. And this one, Danny, has to do with how to keep a live Christmas tree fresh throughout the entire holiday season.
Oh, that's great. And also a safety factor there. Okay, let's get started. Right now, let's see if we can head down to Miami and help Judy out. Judy, welcome to the show, and tell us what's going on around your house with this shower door enclosure.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
So here's my question.
Mm-hmm.
One of the sliding glass doors on our shower broke, so we replaced it. And of course, the new door is crystal clear, but the old one looks cloudy and pretty off next to it.
Mm-hmm.
It could be the minerals in our water. I'm not really sure, but I have a solution for cleaning the old one.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's so many different types of glass, too. That's another thing. And, oh, by the way, when the other door broke, did it just shatter because of that tempered glass?
Yes, it sure did.
I have a feeling it wasn't Judy who shattered that glass. There's got to be a story. There has to be a story behind there. Did someone walk into it, didn't see it? What happened there?
My husband, who likes to do things around the house, was removing it, and actually he didn't drop it or knock it. It just literally shattered.
Oh, boy.
All over the place.
Yeah, that's amazing, that tempered glass like that and what it can do when that breaks. Like I say, you'll be finding little pieces of glass for years around there, I'm sure. But
especially in my feet.
Right. Oh, yeah, exactly. Well, Joe, what do you think? Do you think there's, of course, different ways of thoroughly cleaning it? I mean, really cleaning it is probably the first step. What would you recommend to Judy on this, a good approach?
Well, Judy, I'm sure there's some kind of commercial cleanser, but we always recommend some homemade, non-toxic kind of cleaner you can make. And there's a general household cleaner that we've mentioned before here on the radio. And it's simply you get a 1-quart spray bottle, and you put in half a cup of rubbing alcohol and 2/3 cup of white vinegar, and then you just top off the bottle with water. And you use that to clean almost any surface in the house. And I would certainly start with that. Spray it on and try it. If it's just soap deposits and water staining, that would probably clean it. Now, if it is hard water deposits that have gotten on the glass, you have to use some sort of acid, and we always recommend lemon juice because it's amazing how strong lemon juice actually is. So you can mix. I've tried this one technique, which works pretty well. You just mix lemon juice with baking soda, and you kind of rub it on, brush it on the glass, however you can get it on there. Let it wait like 5 or 10 minutes, then scrub it off with a scouring sponge. And then there's another technique I've heard where you just take a lemon and dip it, cut it in half, and dip it into the baking soda. Then use that as kind of like a sponge, and you can scrub it off. So you can try either of those.
Okay.
And then once you get it clean, what you can do is apply. Are you familiar with a product called Rain-X?
Mm-hmm.
It's used for windshield. Put it on windshield so water sheds off. Well, you can use that. It works just as well on the inside surface of the glass. Not only will the water shear off it, but it won't get as cloudy as quickly as if you didn't protect it. And then the only last thing, which is a bit of a pain in the neck, because I do it here every day when I shower, is I keep a rubber squeegee in the shower, and you squeegee off the glass after every shower. Okay. And I must admit, it is a pain in the neck, but if you get that water off, that'll also deter any spotting or eventual buildup of soap deposits.
Great. This is all very helpful.
And keep your husband away from the
That's
shower
right.
door.
That's right.
That's
Sure
the other
will.
tip.
Yeah. all breakable DIY projects, you need to get somebody else. So we don't want to pick on your husband, but Judy, I hope this makes it blend in a little bit better. I'm sure that it will when you get that thoroughly cleaned. And if we can help you on anything else, let us know. And happy holidays to you.
You too. Thanks so much for taking my question.
Our pleasure. Have a great weekend. Hey, let's get right back to today's Homeowner Hotline. We're going to Chicago. Peter's on the line. Peter, welcome to the show, and tell us what's going on around your house.
Thank you. I have a problem with my outer front aluminum door. The hinges on the top and the middle part of the door are fine. My problem is with the bottom hinge. The 3 screws that hold the hinge to the door keep popping out when the door is open. How do I go about fixing this?
Okay. Yeah, that's one of the things, aluminum doors are great because they're lightweight and, almost no maintenance at all of that. But they are it's a very soft metal. So even though you use some of the panhead type aggressive screws in there, if it gets just a little bit of tension from somewhere, they will strip right out of there. Now, what I've done in the past, of course, I'm a big believer in the 2-part epoxy glue. I've taken the hinge, moved the hinge over, take a hammer and just kind of flatten that out, because a lot of times it will have some protruding parts of the aluminum, and just tap it out flat. And then mix up some of the 2-part epoxy. They have the double syringes that are available at the home center, the little small packs, and mix up a little bit of that, equal parts, and then just apply it, very liberally right along that hinge, and then put that hinge back together. Put the screws in it, because that will hold it, and just make sure that you're clamping it or taping it or something. I'd go maybe 10 or 15 minutes with it, but that seems to bind really, really well, that smooth hinge and that smooth surface. Putting the screws back in that also interact with the epoxy glue, that's worked very, very well with me. Joe, have you had any other situations like this that you've had to deal with?
Yeah, Peter, the problem, of course, is aluminum is pretty weather resistant, but it's soft, so screws can be pulled right out. And there are a couple of things I would try that you could try. One would be drill out a slightly larger hole in the hinge leaf itself, and then just put in a larger diameter sheet metal screw. So what you're basically doing is driving a fatter screw through a thinner hole, and that will usually hold it. And if that's difficult to do for whatever reason, maybe that the screw hole is really just way too big to put in a proper screw, you could just bolt straight through it. I would use stainless steel. I wouldn't even use galvanized. I'd use a stainless steel, either machine screw or short carriage bolt. And these would be relatively small diameter. The head of the fastener would be on the outside and the nut would be on the inside. And once you bolt straight through it, then of course, you don't have any worries about it ever pulling out. The nut might loosen up occasionally, but that would be easy enough to tighten up. And if any of the threaded bolt is sticking out on the inside and you think it might be in the way of someone scratching their leg on it or whatever, you could just trim it off and then file it smooth. So I think one of those techniques, or as Danny said, if you want to try the epoxy glue, that might work as well. What do you think, Peter?
I think it's doable. I'll give it a try.
Okay, let us know how it works out.
Okay, we'll do.
Yeah, a lot easier and cheaper than buying a new one. So, Peter, you take care and have a great weekend. We appreciate you being part of the show today.
Thank you very much.
All right, our pleasure. You're right though, Joe. The wooden, I love wooden screen doors and so forth, but
right,
they just sag and swell up and all kinds of things. I've seen some very, very nice ones, but there are some extremely nice, very attractive aluminum doors out there as well.
Right. Yeah.
I know I installed one recently. I bet the thing weighed 75 pounds. It was it must have been filled with something. I don't know what it was,
wow,
but it was a much more solid one than I've ever dealt with.
Yeah, especially if you live, like he's in Chicago, I'm in Connecticut, and wooden doors, they look great, but they don't last. The weather just beats them up.
Everyone always talks about magic during the holidays. Magic, as in objects miraculously appearing at your front door because you had them delivered through the Home Depot app. Magic, as in predicting the future, knowing what a product will be like just by reading our customer reviews. This may all feel like magic, but it isn't. It's just good old-fashioned cutting-edge technology. Make the holidays yours with a little help from the Home Depot app. How doers get more done.
Right now, we're going to New Jersey to talk with Brian. Brian, welcome to the show, and tell us what's going on around your house there.
Hey, thanks, guys. I love your show.
Thank you.
Oh, appreciate it, man.
I called into the show a few months back asking you guys about enlarging my existing deck. But with lumber prices exploding, I put those plans on hold, and I decided just to replace some of the badly warped and cracked deck boards. So over the summer, I bought about a dozen pressure-treated 2x6s, but never got around to putting them down. My question is, do you think I should stain the boards now or wait until next summer? And I was also curious if you guys had any tips or tricks for applying the stain so it lasts.
Okay, sure. Well, I'll tell you what, it just depends. When you store them inside, that usually they will dry out really, really well. But if there's any humidity in that area of your home where you stored it, it may not take that stain very well. A very simple, non-scientific way of determining that is to spread the boards out a little bit and take a cup of water and just put water on each one of them and just look at it. If that water soaks in, it will accept stain very well. If it puddles up a little bit, you're going to have to get those boards outside and let some sun and wind kind of dry them out a little bit before you apply that stain. That's going to be key to that. And of course, once you get them to where they will accept the stain, you want to buy a good quality stain. That's extremely important. We always recommend a semi-transparent stain so that stain will soak into the pores of the wood now that you've gotten them dry. And I would go ahead and, the great advantage that you have there, since you don't have the boards installed yet, do all sides. Do the backside, edges, ends, everything before you install them. That's just going to protect them and make it last a little bit longer. Joe, any other tips for Brian on that?
Yeah, Brian, I think it's fine to stain them now. As Danny said, you want to make sure they're dry. And most stain manufacturers recommend that the deck's moisture content should be between 12 and 15%. The lower, the better, of course. And you can test that you can buy a moisture meter, at any hardware store or home center for probably about 15 or 20 bucks. And if you don't have one, you can try the water trick or just pick up the boards. If they feel heavy, they're soaked with water because these are pressure-treated pieces of lumber. Where are you going to be able to store them indoors? I mean, indoors like a garage or basement, or where do you think you can stack them up?
Right now, they're in my basement.
Okay. Is it pretty dry down there ordinarily?
Yeah, it's not bad.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then I would wait till I'd keep them indoors, keep them nice and dry. I would cross-cut one end perfectly square, and this way you can really apply the stain. And the reason you don't do both ends is because you're probably going to have to cut these to length, so you're going to be cutting one end when you go to install them. But if you cross-cut one end perfectly square now, you can apply stain, and that's where you want the stain to really soak in because the end grain soaks up a lot of stain. And the only other tip is people have a tendency to over-apply the stain because they think it looks better, but what happens is when the solvent evaporates, whether it's water or mineral spirits, when it evaporates, it leaves behind way too much pigment, and it basically acts almost like a paint. So you want to apply it and then scrub it off. And it seems like a waste because so much of it ends up in your rag, but that's what you want, the best way to do it. And if it's not dark enough, you can always apply more stain. But Brian, I think if the question is, can you stack these up indoors, keep them indoors? Yes, keep plenty of space between the boards until they're completely dry. And once you apply the stain, keep plenty of space between the boards until the stain's fully dry before you stack them up, of course. But I don't see any reason. Danny, do you see any reason why you can't just stain them indoors and storm there?
No, I think that would be perfectly fine. And I'll tell you what, to accelerate any drying of the wood, if you find that it still seems a little damp, a fan does a world of good. You can just put a fan down on one end, blowing across it. Just let it go for 2 or 3 days. Not going to really cost you any money to speak of in electricity, and that will certainly help quite a bit to take care of that.
Great. All right. Thanks for the advice, guys.
Okay.
Hey, our pleasure, and we're glad to have you back on the show again. And if we can help you any other way, Brian, let us know. And happy holidays to you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you very much. Time for our Best New Product segment, brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Now, does it ever feel like it just would be easier to sweep off the driveway and sidewalks than to chase every little leaf with an underpowered blower? Well, that frustration of having to get right on top of the debris to move it off your driveway is what led Milwaukee to develop their M18 Fuel 18-volt brushless, cordless, handheld blower. Listen to some of this. Now, this blower has the power to clear from 15 feet away because the Power State brushless motor can deliver 450 cubic foot of air per minute at about 120 miles per hour. And it gets to be full throttle in just under 1 second. And this is a very important part of it. It's up to 4 pounds lighter than most of the competitors. And with both high and low speed settings and a variable speed trigger, you have the control to clear debris from, say, delicate areas like flower beds without moving all of your mulch out of there. There's also a lock-on button that allows the blower to be locked in on full throttle when you're tackling maybe some of the big jobs like that big patio or something along those lines. And it's part of the M18 system, so it's compatible with over 200 other cordless Milwaukee tools. So for more information on this Milwaukee M18 Fuel 18-volt brushless cordless handheld blower, log on to HomeDepot.com. Ted is on the line with a question, a little electrical question. Ted, welcome to the show. Let's see if we can help you with that electrical problem.
Thanks, Danny. I have an outlet, an exterior outlet that recently quit working. I just thought it was the outlet itself because I did have some power washing done to the outside of the house. So I replaced that outlet, and it didn't seem to ever come back to life. Now, on the interior of that wall, it's vaulted, so I can't really go up into the attic and see where the power comes from. I know for sure it's not on its own circuit, but I don't know where to start to look.
Well, it's a tricky one sometimes. It can be so obvious that you look right over it, and other times you just have to kind of go through a little bit of due diligence and troubleshooting it. One of the first things I think about, so it's an outside outlet, but it is not a GFCI?
No, sir, it is not.
Okay. But, a lot of times they will be hooked to a GFI. So, it may be in the kitchen, in the bathroom, or some other area where that when the pressure washing took place, it tripped the circuit, the actual GFCI inside. And so sometimes you have to kind of look around and see where that is. That might be kind of an unusual one because usually the GFCI would be outside on that. But also when you remove that outlet or when you take the outlet out of the box, of course, one of the things you could use a tester to see if it's getting power. Most likely it's not, because if you replace it with a new one, certainly that would eliminate the possibility that the outlet was bad. Very unlikely that two of them would be bad like that. But Joe, what do you think in terms of other ideas for Ted to kind of troubleshoot where the problem is and why the power is not there?
Yeah, Ted, it's always difficult to diagnose electrical problems over the radio, but I was thinking the same thing with an electrical voltage and continuity tester. You could pull that electrical outlet out from the box and test to see if power is coming to it by putting the probes on the screw terminals on either side. So if you haven't done that, that's one thing you need to do, just make sure it's power. And then, of course, you got to check the circuit breakers to make sure the circuit breaker's on. And you said you're not sure if this is on its own circuit. I don't know how old this home is or what the code is where you're located, but ordinarily all outdoor outlets have to be GFCI protected, meaning either it's a GFCI outlet or it's hooked up to a GFCI circuit breaker. And it ordinarily is always on a dedicated circuit, meaning there's not anything else on. There might be other outdoor outlets, but it's not your kitchen outlet, So I think I'd hate to say just get an electrician in there and let him solve the problem, but that's what you might have to do, because I'd hate to, you don't want to be messing with electricity with not knowing exactly what the issue is. So I think the only thing I could ask you to do is test it to see if there's power at the box itself, at the breaker, at the outlet, and that the breaker is on. And if all that is, and if the breaker's on and there's no power, then I'm not sure what to tell you. You're going to have to get an electrician to diagnose this. And this is not, by the way, a very difficult problem for a licensed electrician. He'd be able to diagnose it once he sees your system and sees what else might or might not be on that specific circuit.
Okay.
Like I say, it may be so obvious and just, oh, well, there it is. Or it might take a little while to take care of it. But I would check any of the ground fault outlets you have inside the house first. That may be as simple as it is.
All right. Well, I appreciate that.
Okay, Ted, we appreciate you being a part of the show, and hope you have great holidays.
You do the same.
All righty, thank you. I'll bet that's what it is. I'll bet that that it is hooked to a GFCI inside. Now, we're using that term now. Ground fault circuit interrupter is something that almost everywhere is required in any damp areas, your bathrooms, your kitchens, your outdoors, anything along those lines, as a safety, so that if you get moisture in and around it, it will blow that circuit, trip the circuit, so that it keeps you safe from getting electrocuted. So some of those things are like I said, some of them are easy to find and very obvious. Some of them take a little digging in order to get.
Yeah, and I didn't mention it, Ted, but circuit breakers do go bad.
That's true. Uh-huh.
I mean, it's not unusual. It's a little, they're not all going to go bad at once. But I had an electrician come here, and we couldn't solve the problem. And finally he said, well, let me just check the box. And sure enough, the breaker had just gone bad. And, he said, well, boy, that hardly ever happens. But it does. There are lots of devices in a system, and you only need one of them to fail. And, in a case like this, it might be 4 or 5 devices. And, if this outlet's downstream from another one and there's a problem with the other one, like I said, it could be a lot of links in that chain, and you just have to find the right one. And a licensed electrician, an experienced electrician, will track that down.
Everyone always talks about magic during the holidays. Magic, as in objects miraculously appearing at your front door because you had them delivered through the Home Depot app. Magic, as in predicting the future, knowing what a product will be like just by reading our customer reviews. This may all feel like magic, but it isn't. It's just good old-fashioned cutting-edge technology. Make the holidays yours with a little help from the Home Depot app. How doers get more done.
Right now, Joe's going to share a simple solution with us about your Christmas tree.
All right, Danny, if you're decorating your home with a live Christmas tree, here are a few tips to help that tree stay fresh throughout the holiday season. First, as soon as you get the tree home, even if you just cut it down a few miles from your house, as soon as you get home, cut at least 2 inches off the end of the trunk. And here's the reason why. Pine trees are very resinous, lots of sap in it, right? And as soon as you cut it, that sap leaches out, it starts to air dry, and it's almost like a varnish or a shellac. It hardens, and it prevents the tree from sucking up water because it has this dried sap on the end. So as soon as you get home, cut off an inch or 2 off the end of the trunk, and then, and this is another key one, drill a hole, maybe a 1/4 inch diameter hole, up through the center of the trunk, right straight up into the tree. Drill it as deep as you can. Usually, those bits are usually about 4 inches long, so drill it straight up. That'll also help. Between trimming off, getting a fresh cut, and drilling that hole, you're allowing the water to just get sucked right up into the tree. So then immediately, of course, you want to immediately place it in the tree stand and fill it with water. Because if you cut it, and wait a half an hour, you're going to have the same issue. You're going to have to cut it again. You might have put a little tiny tree. You don't want that. So anyway, as soon as you cut it, drill the hole, put it in the water immediately. And what you're going to find that first day, you're going to have to fill that stand at least 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, unbelievable.
It's amazing how much water. Then once the tree's hydrated, then you have to check it every single day. And I know there are. I've not tried one of these. I don't know if you have, Danny. They do make Christmas tree watering devices that you, I guess, hang on a branch and you fill it up and it holds, a couple of gallons of water and it drips down into the pan and I guess it keeps it full. I've never actually tried one of those.
I have a funnel, I have the funnel type thing, but the store-bought ones, hold about a coffee cup full of water.
Right, I know.
So what I did is take a transmission funnel that has the long spout on it, and put a small rubber garden hose on it, and then I cleaned it and spray painted it green.
Of course you did.
And I have it attached inside the tree behind there. Now, that way I can pour a pitcher of water in there. But you don't want it to overflow, of course.
Right.
Yeah, you don't want to overflow on the hardwood floor or anything. And so it's hidden away there. You can't see it and everything. But, of course, every year when we are, getting down to those last presents, and of course, Gus, my grandson, he's going to grab it. He's thinking one more present in there somewhere he's got hidden. And so I said,
climbing the branches,
yeah, leave my funnel alone. But that does work very, very well. Hey, I want to share something with you on a countertop finishing kit we used recently because, one of the reasons we produce the Today's Homeowner radio and television shows is to empower people to improve their homes without having to hire the work out. And it isn't about always saving money. That's a great thing, but I'm never afraid to pinch a penny or two, and there's something to be said for the gratification of doing a job with your own two hands. Well, whatever your reason for doing it yourself, if countertops are a part of your next project, you need to check out the Spreadstone Mineral Select Countertop Finishing Kits from Deitch Coatings. Now, rather than tearing out your old counters and paying a stone fabricator to make and install new ones, you can get that look and feel of real stone all by yourself in just a weekend. These kits come in 11 different colors that mimic real granite, so you can choose the one that fits your style and decor. The system features a simple process that uses a primer, a stone coating, and a clear coat finish. Plus, the kit includes all the tools you need to apply the coatings. It's as easy as painting, but unlike paint, this coating actually contains real stone, so you get the highlights of real minerals and a finish with the durability of stone for your counter. So if you want to upgrade your flat existing surface with the performance of granite, check out DeitchCoatings.com. That's DAICH Coatings.com. Now it's time for our podcast question of the week, and we'd love to get a question from you so that we can answer it here on the Today's Homeowner podcast. All you have to do is go to todayshomeowner.com/podcast. This comes from Davis Hobbs. A few years ago, we converted our wood deck to a screened-in porch with a roof. Now I'd like to tear out the wood decking and pour a concrete floor. But how will the roof stay up, and will I have to tear down the screen porch in order to pour the concrete slab? Wow.
Sounds like he got ahead of himself here. Should have poured the concrete slab before he went all the way to screening it in.
Well, you know how things evolve on things like that you just have a deck, and you're so glad to have a deck and some place to entertain a little bit, and then the bugs are bugging you, so you screen it in. So, I can envision how this could be done with, it's not easy. I mean, basically you would, it's almost like you see some of the house movers doing things where you put like a 2x12 running horizontally down the side of the screen porch and along the end of the screen porch, and you screw that through the screen and into the studs. Then you go out just outside there with jacks, and you jack it up with 4x4. So basically, you're just suspending it or hovering it over the wood deck that's there. Then all the demolition of the wood deck, you remove it out of there. Then you form up around it, and then you pour the slab. Boy, did I make that sound simple, didn't I? It is not that simple, but it is doable. The thing you don't want is to put any vertical pressure on the walls that might interrupt the strong tie you should have and connection you would have with the roof to your existing roof. But it can be done. I mean, the good news is at least it's not wood-sided, where you have wood already on the siding that would make it much heavier. But you can do that in such a way and just kind of finesse it and work with it a little bit, and it makes for a little more of a difficult concrete pour. Because anytime, I don't know if you've ever poured concrete where you have it all enclosed with walls, like maybe filling in a sunken living room or raising a garage, but that's not fun. Usually a slab doesn't have walls or anything on the side of it to deal with. But I think it can be done. But it'll, like I say, you have to bring in that special word finesse to really finesse this just right.
Finesse, yeah. Get a concrete contractor who has finesse. Yeah. Good luck with that. Unfortunately, he's going to have to turn back the hands of time here and remove the screen, because you have to get access, can remove all the screen and pull up all the decking. There's quite a bit he could do himself. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to pouring the concrete, forming it up, suspending the roof, shoring up the roof, that should really be left to a professional, because that could get dangerous. So you don't want to fool around with that. Yeah,
absolutely. So be careful on that one, Davis. We appreciate your question. And again, if you'd like to send us one, it's todayshomeowner.com/podcast. podcast. We really appreciate the wonderful reviews we continue to get, and we appreciate you taking some time to kind of sit with Joe and I as we share with you some of the information that we've gained over the many years that we've been involved in remodeling and home improvement. So thank you so much for listening to today's Homeowner Podcast. I'm Danny Lipford, along with my co-host, Joe Truini. We'll see you next week.